Mananas y todos. Welcome back, colleagues. The 37 na Legislature in Guam is called to order. Majority Leader, Senator Shelton, you are recognized.
Buenas and Hafaday, Madam Speaker and colleagues. I move to waive, notwithstanding the House Rules, Section 1.02, Sessions of the Legislature in Guam, H1, Privileges of the Floor, persons allowed to permit the students of CIFA Learning Academy Charter School onto the session floor.
Sorry. On that motion, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries. Welcome to the students of CIFA. Please rise. We will now begin with a prayer. If Senator Taitigui could kindly lead us in prayer.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Lord, your grace brings this body together once again to maintain our course toward building a stronger Guam. With gratitude and deep humility, we ask that you guide our debates with respectful discourse, so that our words lead the policy outcomes where Guam's people are safer and moving steadily toward economic recovery and stability. Lord, we pray that you will lead our deliberations with the spirit of cooperation. Give us the courage to stand against those who hurt the people's trust. Impart on us the wisdom to restore faith where it's been lost. Remind us that together we are 15 members of a community chosen to be the voice of thousands, to represent and to fight for the best interest of all those rights, health, and safety our government must protect. Heavenly Father, the work we do for our people is our answer to your call to serve others. May the work we accomplish this March session be done with truth and fairness as we carry out our commitment to build a better Guam. In your good name we pray. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Senator, for the recognition of a recipient of Maladan Mastaklu na Sacrificio, the legislature expresses a never-ending and never-forgotten gratitude by the people of Guam by recognizing a recipient of Maladan Mastaklu na Sacrificio on a display in the Guam Congress building and during each of its sessions. Today I recognize Senator San Augustine to recognize one of our recipients.
On behalf of a grateful island and country, we honor Private First Class Herman Borja de Leon and the family of Private First Class Herman Borja de Leon for making the ultimate sacrifice in service and defense of our island and country.
Senator. We will now have the recitation of the Inifresi, the singing of the Guam hymn in Chamorro, and the singing of the national anthem by the students of CIFA Academy.
Imastaculum gicurasonhu, zanimas figu naninasinyahu, hua fresen maisazu, palabaitehi, zandu defendi, ihenengi, ikotura, ilengwahi, iairi, ihanum zalitana shamor. Nila shoku deretsu dinazo ostata, esi hua firma, hiui biblia, Zani bandelahu y bandera Guahan. Panogi chamoru, pulita lota, kanta matunonya itoru ilugan. Para i honra, para i gloria, broad stripes and bright stars, through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched, were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof to the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Sizuos Masi to the students of SIFA. Thank you. We're now in roll call. Clerks, please take the roll call.
Senator Barnett, Senator Blas, Senator Brown, Senator Dueñas, Senator Fisher, Senator Lujan, Vice Speaker Muñoz-Barnes, Senator Parkinson, Senator Perez, Senator Canetta, Senator San Augustine, Senator San Nicolas, Senator Shelton, Senator Taitigui, Speaker Talahi. Madam Speaker, there is a quorum.
Sizuos Masi, Mr. Clerk. On the approval of legislative journals, Majority Leader Senator Shelton, you are recognized.
Sizuos Masi, Madam Speaker, I move to approve the legislative journals dated February 19th, 2024, March 5th, 2024, and March 6th, 2024, subject to corrections.
On that motion to approve these legislative journals, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries. Majority Leader, you're recognized.
Sizuos Masi, Madam Speaker, there are communications and petitions, and I move that they be appended to today's session journal.
On that motion to append communications and petitions, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries. Majority Leader, you're recognized.
Sizuos Masi, Madam Speaker, there are messages from E. Magahagan Guahan, and I move that they be appended to today's session journal.
On the motion to append messages from Imagahagan Guahan, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries. Majority Leader, you're recognized.
Sizuos Masi, there are reports of standing committees, and I move that they be appended to today's session journal as well.
On that motion, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries. Majority Leader Senator Shelton.
Sizuos Masi, Madam Speaker, there are no reports of select committees at this time.
Sizuos Masi.
And I move that bills introduced, bill numbers 259-37 COR through 260-37 COR, and resolutions introduced, resolution numbers 341-37 LS through 342-37 LS, 343-37 COR, 344-37 LS through 346-37 LS, and 347-37 COR through 355-37 COR be deemed to have been given their first reading.
On the motion regarding the first reading of bills and resolutions, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries. We're now in motions. Majority Leader, you are recognized.
Sizuos Masi, Madam Speaker, I move to excuse members not present for today's session.
On that motion, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries.
And
Majority.
Madam Speaker, I move that all congratulatory, commendatory, and condolence resolutions introduced today and for the remainder of this legislative session be considered first read and adopted, to allow the Legislative Council to make technical corrections and to add all senators as co-sponsors.
On that motion, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries. We're still in motions. Is there any other motion? If not, then Majority Leader, you are recognized. We are going now to legislative concurrence.
Assiduous Masi. Madam Speaker, I move to place in the voting file from the Committee on Infrastructure, Economic Development, Simon Sanchez High School, Disability Services, Self-Determination and Historic Preservation, Housing, Public Accountability, and the Guam Buildup, the nomination of Sandra F. Berdalio to serve as a member of the Guam Housing Corporation Board of Directors with the recommendation to do confirm.
On that motion to add the nomination of Sandra Berdalio to the agenda, to the voting file, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries. Majority Leader, you're recognized.
Assiduous Masi, Madam Speaker. I move to place in the voting file from the Committee on Environment, Revenue and Taxation, Labor, Procurement, and Statistics and Research and Planning the nomination of Stephen Carrera, Esquire, to serve as a member of the Guam Environmental Protection Agency Board of Directors with the recommendation to report out only.
On that motion to add the nomination of Stephen Carrera to the voting file, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries. Majority Leader, you're recognized.
Assiduous Masi, Madam Speaker. I move to place in the voting file from the Committee on Environment, Revenue and Taxation, Labor, Procurement, and Statistics, Research and Planning the nomination of Francis A. Castro to serve as a member of the Guam Environmental Protection Agency Board of Directors with the recommendation to report out only.
On that motion to add the nomination of Francis Castro to our voting file, Senator Taitigui.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just a point of inquiry. I've noticed on our session agenda that we have in front of us, it says to confirm. However, the Secretary is saying report out only. Unless I'm reading a outdated one, but I'm showing to confirm for the last one and the other one, so. I might have an older one.
This one says to report out only.
Okay, can I have 1 minute, please?
Yes. 1 minute recess. We're back from recess. We were on a motion to place a nomination of Francis Castro to the voting file. Is there any objection? Senator San Agustin?
Madam Speaker, I don't have an objection, but point of inquiry. We have two nominations that only have to report out. The others have to confirm. So I'm just questioning is why even entertain it if it's not even for confirmation? If it's report out, then just leave it aside, and then until such time it's to be reported out to be confirmed. That's my question, my inquiry. Okay, thank you.
Well, there was a motion during Committee on Rules to place them on the agenda. So they're on. Legislative concurrence is now up to us to debate or place them onto the voting file. This is a time for debate, if there's any. So on that motion, is there anyone else who'd like to be recognized? On the motion to place Francis Castro. If not, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries. Majority Leader, you're recognized. Oh, sorry, Senator Barnett, you're recognized.
We'll just keep it going and then.
Majority Leader.
Okay. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I move to place in the voting file from the Committee on Education, Public Safety, and the Arts the nomination of Paul B. Mendiola to serve as a member of the Guam Council on Arts and Humanities Agency, CAHA Board of Directors with the recommendation to do confirm.
On that motion, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries. Majority Leader, you're recognized.
Sedus Masi, Madam Speaker, I move to place in the voting file from the Committee on Maritime Transportation, Air Transportation, Parks, Tourism, Higher Education, and the Advancement of Women, Youth, and Senior Citizens the nomination of Michelle A. Murfallen to serve as a youth member of the Guam Visitors Bureau Board of Directors with the recommendation to do confirm.
On that motion, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries. Senator Barnett, you're recognized.
Sidus Masi, Madam Speaker, Manana Sidus. I move to place in the voting file from the Committee on Education, Public Safety, and the Arts the nomination of Angie R. Taitagui to serve as Director of the Guam Council on the Arts and Humanities Agency, CAHA, with the recommendation to do confirm, ma'am.
On that motion, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries. Majority Leader, Senator Shelton, you're recognized.
Sedus Masi, Madam Speaker, I move to place in the voting file from the Committee on Maritime Transportation, Air Transportation, Parks, Tourism, Higher Education, and the Advancement of Women, Youth, and Senior Citizens the nomination of Faye R. Valencia Avalos to serve as a member of the Port Authority of Guam Board of Directors with the recommendation to do confirm.
On that motion to place a nomination of Faye Valencia Valles to the voting file, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries. All right, we are now moving on from legislative concurrence to consent calendar. There are no items. We are now on the second reading file. We will begin with Senator San Augustine, Bill number 105-37 LS.
Madam Speaker, I ask that we set that bill aside.
All right, on that motion to set Bill 105-37 LS aside, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries. Majority Leader, we're now on Bill number 119-37 COR.
Sedus Masi, Madam Speaker, I move to set aside Bill number 119-37 COR as amended by the Committee on Environment, Revenue and Taxation, Labor, Procurement, and Statistics, Research, and Planning.
On that motion, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries. On Bill number 133-37 COR, Majority Leader, you are recognized.
Sedus Masi, Madam Speaker, I move to set aside Bill number 133-37 COR as amended by the Committee on Infrastructure, Economic Development, Simon Sanchez High School, Disability Services, Self-Determination, and Historic Preservation, Housing, Public Accountability, and the Guam Buildup.
On that motion, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries. Bill number 165-37 COR, Majority Leader, you are recognized.
Madam Speaker, I move to set aside Bill number 165-37 COR as amended by the Committee on Environment, Revenue and Taxation, Labor, Procurement and Statistics, Research and Planning at this time.
On that motion, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries. We are now on Bill number 174-37 COR.
Madam Speaker, I move to set aside Bill number 174-37 COR as amended by the Committee on Environment, Revenue and Taxation, Labor, Procurement and Statistics, Research and Planning at this time.
On that motion to set aside Bill 174-37, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries.
Okay.
We're now on Bill number 176-37 COR.
May I ask for a 1-minute recess?
Yes, we'll have a 1-minute recess. All right. We're back from recess. We're now on Bill number 176-37 COR. Vice Speaker Munya Barnes, you're recognized.
Sidzuis Masi, Madam Speaker, and Manana Sidzuis to you and to my colleagues here. Madam Speaker, I move that Bill number 176-37 COR as amended by the Committee on Emergency Response, Border Safety, Military, Veterans Affairs, and the Mayor's Council of Guam, as introduced by Tina Rose Munya Barnes, Dwayne T.D. Nicholas, Jesse A. Lahan, and Senator Christopher M. Duenas, which is an act to amend Section 73151 of Article 1, Chapter 73, Title 5, Guam Code annotated, and to add new Section 73127.1, 73104.1, Section 73104.2, Section 73104.3, and Section 73104.4 to Article 1 of Chapter 73, Title 5, Guam Code annotated relative to authorizing the Guam Customs and Quarantine Agency, CQA, to adopt and implement a customs automated system and the harmonized commodity and coding system, which is the HCCS, to the third reading. And Madam Speaker, may I speak on the measure?
Yes, please proceed.
I'm hoping, Madam Speaker, that if my time runs out, that one of my colleagues will assist me and give me a little bit more time. So, Sidzuis Masi Talu, Madam Speaker, and many of God's blessings to all my colleagues here and to the public watching our Mes Chamorro session. Madam Speaker, Bill number 176-37 represents the culmination of years of efforts from Guam Customs and Quarantine and its partners, and is a direct solution to concerns outlined by not one but two of our elected public auditors over the need to modernize the way our government accounts for imports coming into our island of Guam. I thank the bipartisan coalition of senators who have already supported this bill, as co-sponsor Senator Chris Duenas, Senator Lahan, and Senator Dwayne Nicholas, who is the oversight chair, who literally works closely with our committees to moving and facilitating this bill forward. Madam Speaker, by adopting the harmonized commodity and coding system, which is a global standard maintained by the World Customs Organization, our island will not only help bring our local enforcement agency into compliance with more than 200 of its peers. It also leads to an increase of government revenue without raising taxes. According to the Office of Public Accountability, Madam Speaker, in 2018, while air cargo that came into Guam was valued at $1.6 billion, only about $136,000 in use taxes were collected. Proper taxation of the air cargo that year could have generated over $65.5 million in use tax revenues. The OPA reported that, Madam Speaker. I want to repeat that proper taxation of air cargo in just 1 year could have generated more than $65 million in additional use taxes alone. What's stopping Customs and the rest of Guam from realizing that revenue is the antiquated system we use today, where paper manifests are filed by shipping companies? And in order for a customs officer to conduct an investigation into a specific shipment, they will have to search a massive warehouse for one piece of paper contained in one of tens of thousands of boxes lining hundreds of shelves, a task without exaggeration, Madam Speaker. This is without exaggeration that would be like finding a needle in a haystack. One customs official shared that under their current system, a FOIA request from a reporter could take a team of border protection officers out of the field for a week or more. This same reduction in law enforcement presence at our ports of entry also occurs when a senator or the governor's office or the OPA's requests that they request information from Guam's Customs and Quarantine. Madam Speaker, it's no wonder our officers find themselves with odds stacked against them as they're charged with preventing crime in a modern age with records maintained under standards that aren't even up to par with extinct empires. As another customs officer put it to my office, the ancient Romans kept better records than we do today. But all of that is set to change, Madam Speaker, through this important piece of legislation. When enacted into law, the CQA, Customs and Quarantine Agency, will begin its administrative process to develop rules and regulations that will adopt and implement this modern digital system. Madam Speaker, thanks to the CQA's commitment to supporting its customers like the Port Users Group, we were asked to make a proposed change to the bill to also allow for more time through the Administrative Adjudication Act, which is the AAA, to develop fines and penalties for violating the harmonized code rather than prescribing fines in law. Madam Speaker, yes, I am truly grateful that stakeholders are willing to engage with Customs and my office and fully endorse the language that will be shared during the testimony that was done with CQA, especially since it will consider separately accidental violations made by end consumers from willful deception being practiced by bad actors looking to be paid to pad their profits, with unpaid taxes. Madam Speaker, also important for the public to note is that this bill does not change the current exemptions provided in Guam law for the use tax, which includes a provision that does not assess the use tax on imports that are for personal, non-business use of $1,000 per month up to a maximum of $5,000 per year. Again, that is the use tax on imports that are for personal, non-business use. Madam Speaker, in closing, I humbly ask my colleagues here on this august body to support this measure because it will lead to more reliable data on imported and exported goods that can be assessed in real time, and because it will bring more fairness in business by reducing the ability to defraud law enforcement, and because it would lead to more investments into the Guam Customs and Quarantine. Because it will arm our offices with accurate and available data to better combat the importation of drugs and the introduction of invasive species. Because, Madam Speaker, it will bring more revenue into the government without, again I say, without further burdening our people with taxes. So with that, Madam Speaker, I'm truly proud of the progress we can achieve when partnerships are forged, and we look forward to the day when this fundamental change allows us and policymakers to appropriate more funds into border security, to schools, and to social services. So I really ask my colleagues in this august body to support this efforts, and again want to extend my undangkaluna samasi to my colleagues who are co-sponsors to this measure, to the oversight chair who really took the time to work closely with our office in Customs and Quarantine. And Madam Speaker, this bill is no stranger. This has been literally in the works for the last 2-3 terms, and we finally got into that. We talked to a lot of the members in the business community and just everybody, the stakeholders involved, and this is the positive measure that we came out with. So, undangkaluna situs masi for giving me the opportunity to speak. I know I have 7 minutes left, but I truly appreciate the time Sila Mahasi.
Sina Maasi, Vice Speaker. On the bill, is there anyone who'd like to be recognized on the bill? Senator St. Nicholas, you are recognized.
Good morning, Madam Speaker. Good morning, colleagues, and good morning to the viewing audience. I spent a lot of my time, my young years, as a customs officer. I spent 23 years there, and one of the things we've been trying to do is to try to bring the procedure up to date, and one of that was bringing the harmonized coding system in and make it a reality. The system is used by over 200 countries, and what it allows for accuracy, transparency in the way customs handles commodities that they cross our border. One of the things that we spoke about that was very, that would help facilitate businesses on Guam is pre-clearance. Ever since I was an officer, one of my goals was to try to get businesses in and out of the customs area as quickly as possible so that we can, so they can do their business of doing business. And any delays, just hampers business and trade and makes it, just very difficult to do business, and there could be a bottleneck at customs. And one of those things that I always wanted to prevent was a delay in shipment and getting the goods and the commodities to the businesses and then to the end consumer. And one of the ways we could do that is through pre-clearances. So let's say you're a business person and you purchase something in a far off country, and they put a code in it, and then it allows the businesses to present that to customs. And because it's a harmonized system, it's a codified system by the World Customs Organization, it would allow our officers to pre-clear and thereby maybe relieving some of the strain at the customs area. I never liked long lines, and I was always interested in making things better for both our officers and for our customers. It's something that I've always loved to do, is trying to find ways to improve customer service. And I think this harmonized system is a way to modernize our customs procedures, and also I think it will benefit our business folks in the long run, and also our consumers at the end, where we really do need to get the commodities out to them. And I'm very proud to be a co-sponsor to this measure, and I'm very excited, and I thank the author and also the bipartisan support that we're getting for this measure. It's a wonderful thing. I think it's a long time coming to modernize our customs system, and I'm very proud of those men and women who are up there, watching the gates. I've always told them, it's a very wonderful thing that you guys are doing, because while we're all sleeping, you guys are keeping our borders safe. So I want to thank them, and I want to thank the author and the bipartisan support, and I ask the rest of my colleagues for their support on the measure. Thank you very much, everybody. Biba, Mr. Morrow, and everybody have a wonderful day. Thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Biba, Titus Masi, Senator St. Nicholas. On the bill, anyone would like to be recognized on the bill? Senator Lujan.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Good morning to colleagues. Madam Speaker, I rise in full support of this bill. We're in 2024 now, Madam Speaker, and the world has changed. A lot of airports have changed. In a lot of ways, we have caught up with technology, but in a lot of ways, we haven't as well. this is one of the measures that will bring us up to date to be a player in the world of travel. As we look at Guam as being the hub and the tip of the spear, we need to be updated in measures that would affect not only commerce, but also our tourism industry. You know, last week I was at the airport conference, and looking at other airports and how they funnel their millions of tourists through their airports with customs and quarantine, CQA and TSA and all that, you know, left us drooling basically that because we wish some of these things have been implemented here on Guam, but because of our status, of course, we have to rely on a lot of the federal agencies to allow us to be able to do as such. And I was, as the previous speaker saying about pre-clearance and commodities, that is absolutely true. The airports around the world are built in the center of commerce and wanting and needing these businesses to have their goods to be shipped out or flown out as quickly as possible. We talk about, of course, Guam being a hub of clearing cargo and all that. Well, we won't be able to do as such until such a time that we modernize. And this measure goes a long ways. There's still work that needs to be done, of course. The rules and regs have to be put together. But in order for us to achieve that, we need to start modernizing our system to be able to get us to be major players and to be major players in bidding for such entities, for us to clear, to be a cargo hub here in Guam. Not only that with cargo, Madam Chair, but we're working really hard, of course, with the Chair of Aviation, Senator Shelton, as well, in trying to get pre-clearance, trying to get the feds to allow us to pre-clear our passengers here in Guam, so we won't have to again meet the unfortunate challenges that we see in Hawaii. But that being said, again, there are a lot of progress that has been made with the airport, but there's still a lot that needs to be done. And this one particular bill, of course, Bill 176-37 COR, and I'm proud to be a third co-author with this, goes a long ways in helping to modernize, again, not just our airport, but in the way we do business in customs. We're all in one here. And to be able to be, again, major players in the world in regards to if one day we become a clearinghouse, or basically for all goods that may come out from this part of the world entering first port of entry into the United States. So that being said, Madam Speaker, again, I stand in full support of Bill 176-37. I ask, of course, my colleagues to support this measure as well. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Senator Lujan. Is there any other senator who'd like to be recognized on the bill? On the bill, Senator Fisher? Senator Barnett? Senator Fisher? You're recognized.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Speaker. If I may, I would like to ask my friend Senator Barnes, the principal author of the bill, whether when she uses the word taxes at line 19 on page 4 and line 25 of the same page, whether or not she agrees that this does not allow the government of Guam to impose a tax.
With the Vice Speaker,
Sidus Masi, Madam Speaker, Yes, I will answer to that inquiry, and he is correct.
Okay.
Senator.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
On the bill, Senator Barnett, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Definitely rise in support of the measure. I've been meeting with some of the been meeting with a lot of customs officers out and about, and they're very concerned about what they feel is an erosion of their authority, whether by design or default that's occurred over the years. And so I support this measure. Like Senator St. Nicholas said, it's a long time coming, a very, very long time in coming. But I did want to just ask the author to address some of the concerns that the Chamber of Commerce had raised during the public hearing relative to the establishment of fees to pay for this, if she could yield to that.
With the sponsor yield.
Si Juice Masi, Madam, the intent of this bill was just collecting on the existing taxes today, nothing else. If there are fines and fees that want to be promulgated in the rules and regulations, that could happen, but until then, that would have to be incorporated. And our colleagues know that when the AAA process is being done, it's of course open to the different public hearings, and then when that measure is completed, it comes back to this August body for full implementation. So it would have to go through the AAA process.
Senator Barnett.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Like I was saying, I definitely support any effort that's going to modernize the customs authority on Guam. And it's very frustrating when I hear from the officers just things like they don't have the authority they need, whether it's at the port or the airport, to do the things that they have to do to stem the flow of illicit substances like crystal methamphetamine into our island. I'm further encouraged by the efforts that the federal government has undertaken in the Northern Marianas relative to the Border Enforcement Security Task Force. It's very encouraging, but again, our customs authority locally should be at that level where we don't, of course, any assistance from the federal government is welcome, but it should be at a level where we don't rely on the federal government to come in and fill the gaps. And so I support this measure and any measure that is going to restore the authority to the customs and quarantine agency on Guam, because again, just hearing from the rank and file and even some of the leadership, they again feel like they don't have the ability to go wherever they need to go at these ports of entries to check what's coming in. They also obviously don't have the resources to do that, and this implementation of this automated system will go a long way in providing those needed resources so that we can shore up the levels of customs officers that we have, and again do everything we can to mitigate and stop the flow of crystal methamphetamine and other illegal substances into our borders. In talking with just law enforcement, which happens a lot lately, some of the things that they say is, they say, Senator, we could handle what's already here. We could handle the crystal methamphetamine that's on the island. The problem is when they make a little dent in handling it, they make a bust of 5 pounds. They're suspecting that when they bust 5 pounds, you're getting 50 coming in. And so that's why I think it's very important for us to do everything we can to strengthen our borders by supporting our local customs and giving them the authority. Again, they should be mas back guests at the ports of entry. They should be able to go anywhere, do anything, step on anybody's toes to ensure that, we're doing everything that we can as a people, as an island, as a government to stem the flow of these drugs like crystal methamphetamine into our island, because people of Guam have had it with the crystal meth. There was a raid on a drug house in Sinahanya just last week, and I don't like that our people are getting used to these things. So they raided a house in Sinahanya. They arrested a few people, to include 2 mothers for alleged child abuse, right? And this is a couple weeks after they raided a house up north, and we see it all too often. You walk out here in the front of the people's house in Agatna, you walk around this area, you're going to see you're going to see the homeless. You're going to see clearly that they're on crystal methamphetamine. And the state of our island relative to crystal methamphetamine, it's an emergency, I believe. It has hit just about every family, right? And I know that this administration's lean has really been towards providing the treatment and the rehabilitation, which I totally support. But if we're not doing anything on the other ends, the interdiction, the enforcement, the prevention, the awareness, then all we're doing is allowing these drug dealers to create new addicts to add to an already overwhelmed system. And so, although some of my colleagues and maybe some of the viewing public might feel like I'm going off subject here, I think it's all relative. You know, anything, again, we can do to strengthen the customs authority, to show that we mean business relative to the importation of crystal methamphetamine. I support this in any effort to strengthen our local customs, and I'm grateful for the assistance of the federal government relative to this issue. Si Diyos masi, Madam Speaker.
Si Diyos masi. On the bill, is there anyone else who'd like to be recognized on the bill? Senator Shelton, you're recognized.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I rise in support of Bill 167-37, and I want to thank the authors and the co-sponsors of the measure, the chair of the Committee on Customs, for working together with the author to bring this bill to the floor today. We heard many good points about what this will mean for our Customs and Quarantine Agency, and I think that this is a very important and meaningful step for our officers who will finally feel the support and the amount of pride and pride we say we feel in the officers that we have in these positions, and they'll finally feel that support from us here in the Guam Legislature with this meaningful step forward. There are so many times in which we have federal rules and regulations that hamper our local ability to work, and today before us we have this opportunity to pass legislation that gives us an indispensable tool for international trade. And Guam is at a very important inflection point with a boom to our population to be seen very soon, to the need for more trade to happen on our island, whether that means boosting our local exports from the many different talented entrepreneurs we have on island, growing through programs like GUMA to export our goods to the world, our unique merchandise, or bringing in more goods that we need to provide for our people. This is a bill that will bring convenience, not just to our customs and quarantine officers, but to our partners throughout our transportation industry on Guam, our maritime and air transportation, efficiency, lower cost to any associated trade costs, and allow us to collect every penny that we can in existing taxes that we already put on these goods. And of course, bring us to a global level of doing businesses in trade. In addition to all of these positive things that this new system will help us to do, an automated system, we'll be able to collect good data. And good data means good policy for us here in the legislature. And good data means that we have the ability to go after more federal funding and other programs that can help us to keep our borders safe and to be a more efficient trade pillar in our region. And so, Madam Speaker, I thank again our authors and co-sponsors of this legislation, and I look forward to voting yes on this measure.
Si Diyos masi, Senator Shelton. On the bill, is there anyone else on the bill? Senator San Agustin on the bill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to ask a question of the author of the bill. And the question is specifically, is this program done nationwide? When I say nationwide, United States?
Would the author yield to the question?
Yes, I would, Madam Speaker. Thank you. As a matter of fact, I was going to include that in my closing, Madam Speaker, but I want to share that out of over 200 peers, Guam and this region is the only area that's not yet up to par. I want to say that the majority of our brothers and sisters in Micronesia and the Blue Continent all have this harmonized code system just coming into effect, and we're just waiting for Guam now. So thank you for that question, and I really hope that I can get the support.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and to the author. And the reason why I asked that question is because as I look through the bill and the committee report, this has been something that's been discussed. And why don't we send this down to the voting? I'm in support of the bill. Let me just make that very clear. But why are we last? And everybody has a habit of speaking. They do this in California. Why don't we just get this done and moving forward? Because the custom officers I run into tell me the same thing. We need help. And I'm like, well, you better talk to your oversight chair. If not, send me the report and let's introduce it. Because there's many of us here are going to entertain whatever needs to be done and bring it forward before the body. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm in support of the bill.
Thank you very much. Senator San Augustine. On Bill 176-37. Speaker Terlahi, you are recognized.
Jesus Masi, I stand in support of this bill. Should we do it? Absolutely, yes. It's going to bring Guam, digital. It's going to make things smoother, supposedly more thorough for customs purposes, and collection of user tax purposes. But I am concerned about a couple of things. One is, of course, I hope the conversion is smooth as they have promised, and that we do not have a similar incident like what we are having now with the conversion to a new financial system. We had been promised that there would be no gaps, that we would run both concurrently until the new ones fully implemented. But as we can see, even some of our reports are being delayed because of the new financial system. We had a delay in the payment of foster children, or foster parent stipends because of that, and other things. So I just hope that the promises are actually going to be, true, that we will not have a glitch. And we have some time to make sure we work on it when they develop their rules and regs. The Chamber, of course, has asked for, us to be very careful in this. They claim the penalties that are in the bill are exorbitant, and they think that, and not only them, there was some other testimony at the hearing regarding if they are going to be penalized for inputting, for example, the wrong code number. They think that's exorbitant, and they want some help in that. So, of course, Customs has promised that they are going to, work with the users and have a period for training. But I'm just going to put that on the record, because we are approving this with that kind of stipulation, hopefully by Customs, that they are going to take the time needed for the users to implement this at a reasonable cost to the users, because the users also have to adopt a system or change their systems. So that's a very important consideration, I think. The fees, as they said, for errors are pretty high, so they should work with them. They've, in fact, I think the Chamber has asked for a 2-year penalty-free period for implementation of this, to be compliant with this system, should it be passed. They're worried about the smaller shops having to afford the conversion into this system. They are worried, and I hope that this will not be the case, but they have listed down as a concern that there will be a potential for disruption in the flow of importation of goods for an extended period as businesses adapt to the new system, that there will actually be an interruption of the flow of goods. I surely hope that Customs and the Chamber will work together to avoid that. I agree that would be a huge concern to the people of Guam if our goods are not coming in because we converted to a new coding system for Customs. That should not be acceptable. So I just think they have to work diligently, give a lot of notice to the business community and a lot of assistance to the business community to help them to convert as well. And if the author could just yield once again as to who's paying for this system, because that's another one of those concerns. Who's going to pay for the system? Is that going to be increased fees on all of the users to pay for the system itself, if the author would yield?
Vice Speaker Barnes.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And if I'm correct, there have already been resources encumbered or resources set aside for this system, and working through the grants that have been afforded to Customs and Quarantine, even through the international region coming in. As we had visits from the Oceania Customs and Quarantine and others, there have been resources set aside. And if we need a verification on that, I can always make that call. But that was through my understanding. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Citizens Masi, for yielding. Yes, I think that should be part of our record, if we could, before we vote. Thanks. That would give some assurance that we are not going to have to raise fees for Customs to implement this necessarily. We'll see. So again, I guess the hope that we have is that Customs has to submit their rules and regs, including any additional or increased fees, to the legislature through the AAA process that goes through a committee. I hope the committee will put that on so that we can fully address these concerns that the Chamber has raised and small businesses. So we all want, this should be a win-win for everyone. And so that's what we're hoping. I agree with one of the previous speakers, however, that this system, ideal as it is not necessarily going to help us in our interdiction of drugs. And that remains a concern, and I'm hoping that Customs, maybe having this system in place, will give it additional time, its officers additional time to actually do inspections for drugs and other methods for interdiction. So I support this bill. Citizens Masi.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. On the bill, author, you may close.
Citizens Masi, Madam Speaker, thank you for giving me the opportunity to close on this measure, and I thank all my colleagues who spoke and inquired and asked questions, but more importantly, the bipartisan support to facilitate this measure going forward. And before I truly close, Madam Speaker, can I just add co-sponsors to that measure? Senators, Senator Amanda Shelton, Senator Joe San Augustine, Senator Chris Barnett, Speaker Therese Terlai, Senator Roy Kinata, and Senator Will Parkinson on the measure.
On the motion to add co-sponsors, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries.
I do apologize. I forgot my colleague, my brother, Senator Frank Blas.
On that additional motion, any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries.
Thank you. And Madam Speaker, as noted on an inquiry by the good senator from Chigo asking about, is this measure being done elsewhere? And it literally is hard to say that as we've been working even with the previous terms with Senator Mary Torres and other colleagues, it was said that Guam was the only part in this region that wasn't facilitating this measure. Palau and Yap and others have already included this, and they too have seen the realization what the data is, and knowing that even here on Guam, as we have coding methods for going out, we have nothing coming in. And I just want to assure this august body that, again, even with the concerns with the chamber, that we were going to continue to work, and that the rules and regulations through the AAA process will come back to this august body, and the public will again have the opportunity to share in their issues and concerns if any comes up. So, Madam Speaker, I am just want to stress this measure and the hard work that this body has undertaken to help modernize the systems used by the government agencies, that will be used by the government agencies, especially through customs and quarantine. And I would like to stress to my colleagues that CQA is hoping to get this bill enacted before the grants need to be extended or expire, and I humbly urge my colleagues to please support this measure. I'm hoping for unanimous support, Madam Speaker. So on the motion to move it to the third reading voting file, please.
There's been a motion to move the bill as amended on the floor to the third reading file. Is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries. Sidros Masi.
Sidros Masi.
We'll now proceed on the second reading file with Bill number 194-37 LS. Majority Leader, you're recognized. Bill 194.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Bill 194-37, as amended by the Committee on Environment, Revenue and Taxation, Labor, Procurement, Statistics, Research and Planning, I move that this bill be set aside at this time.
On that motion, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries.
Madam Speaker, I also move that Bill number 195-37, as amended by the Committee on Environment, Revenue and Taxation, Labor, Procurement and Statistics, Research and Planning, be set aside.
On that motion, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, bill is set aside. Motion carries. Sidros Masi. We're now on Bill number 213-37 COR. Senator Taitagui, you are recognized.
Buenas and good morning, Madam Speaker, and to my colleagues. I move to place Bill 213-37, which is an act to add a new Item 1 to Paragraph C of Section 1909 of Chapter 19 of Title 1 of Guam Code Annotated relative to the duties of the public auditor, which has been introduced by myself, Senator Joanne Brown, Senator Jesse Lujan, Senator Will Parkinson, Senator Chris Barnett, Senator Sabina Paris, Minority Leader Senator Frank Blas Jr., and Speaker Therese Chalayi onto the third reading file and provide a brief remarks.
Proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Simply put, Bill 213-37 imposes a fine on department and agency directors who fail to submit within the deadline established by the public auditor their agency's financial information required for the Government of Guam audit to the Office of Accountability. Madam Speaker, one of the main duties we have as senators is to produce the Government of Guam's annual budget. In order to prepare and deliberate, critical information is needed. One critical tool we use to develop the budget is the annual GovGuam audit. The Government of Guam audit report provides the necessary analysis which provides credibility to financial statements and gives us confidence that the accounting is true and fair. This allows us to analyze our government's prior and future obligations as well. Other critical reports is the CRER report, which is a monthly financial report on the current state of our finances. This report is due by the 21st of each month. And as long as I can remember, Madam Speaker, I have never seen this report come late until recently. And I think it was mentioned earlier about the situation with our new financial system and the problems it's having. Sometimes, Madam Speaker, though the CRER, when we did have a reliable financial system, which God help us all, it gets here on time to help us on our audit report, has come 3 weeks in advance sometimes. But unfortunately, this government has not been punctual when it comes to providing the Government of Guam audit report on time, which is due by the 30th of June of every year. In fact, Madam Speaker, in section 1422 of subchapter 2 of the Organic Act states, quote, the governor, parentheses, meaning of Guam, unquote, unparenthesized, shall prepare, publish, and submit to the Congress and the Secretary of Interior a comprehensive annual financial report in conformance with the standards of the National Council on Governmental Account within 120 days after the close of fiscal year, unquote. Madam Speaker, since 2000, the government of Guam has failed 13 times to publish and submit our Government of Guam audit report. I'm really quite surprised that Congress hasn't, the Congress or Department of Interior hasn't sanctioned Guam for not complying with this requirement. In fact, Madam Speaker, our FY22 audit was issued on November 21st, 2023. And then for our FY21 audit was issued on July 19th, 2022. So you see, there's a trend going on here. This bill is meant to provide that push and insurance that Government of Guam not only adheres to the requirement of the Organic Act, but to provide this body with the critical information that's needed to produce one of the most important pieces of legislation this body will pass, which is the budget. Because of the importance of receiving the CRER reports in a timely manner, the legislature implements a fine for non-compliance on CRERs. So similarly, Bill 213-37 will impose a fine on department and agency heads who fail to provide timely audit reports information to the Office of Public Accountability. And all fines, Madam Speaker, are collected and will be deposited into the Guam Memorial Authority Hospital Operation Funds. We chose this because of the issues that we're having at the hospital. They're already saying that every year they're short $30 million. Well, at least this year they're short $30 million, even after we appropriated $30 million before that. They're saying every year their expenses are $192 million, if I'm not mistaken, but they're only getting in revenue 160. This is every use, so you can imagine how many years that is accumulated. And without your health, you have nothing. Nothing at all. We need a hospital that can provide the care that's needed, and it needs to be funded. So that's why I chose the Guam Memorial Hospital. But I thank my colleagues for listening to what I had to say and speaking on this legislation with the incentive, this legislation that has the incentive or the teeth needed for critical information for this body. But I look forward to any comments or suggestions that my colleagues may have to make this a stronger legislation. And I thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity.
Sijus Masi, Senator Taitakwi. On the bill. Would anyone like to be recognized on the bill? Senator Brown, on the bill, you're recognized.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I certainly also rise in support of this bill, and I think it's unfortunate in some ways that the bill even has to be addressed because of the fact that we've not had consistent reporting from department and agencies with regards to their budgets and their finances and their expenditures. That's not an uncommon thing. We've seen this past year how it's delayed the overall report from the public auditor to provide us that information, which is critical for us here in the Guam Legislature to review, and we should review, prior to approving the new budget for the new fiscal year. You know, a lot of people like to be in power, Madam Speaker. They like to be at the top. They like to be in charge. But you know, with leadership comes the burden and responsibility of being in charge and doing the work that's involved in being in charge and making sure that your operations are in place, that your personnel are in place, and that you're, more importantly, properly expending the people's money. It's very easy for us here to pass figures because, you know, it's not coming out of our back pocket. If it was, I think we'd be a lot more responsible in how we spend the people's money. The same thing goes for department and agency heads. In running your operation, you also have to ensure that your financial reports are up to date and ensure that your department is running properly and above board and that the people's money is being properly spent and accounted for. More importantly, and accounted for after it's been expended. And so it's unfortunate again, you know, another effort by Senator Taitigui to impose a fine to department directors that don't respond in a timely manner. The fact that that even has to be put there is concerning, but almost necessary these days. Because what is the penalty when directors don't perform? Lately, we've seen not a lot. They just sit. They just sit in their seats. We don't see a lot of action taken against actions by department directors that are not living up to what they should be doing, especially those that were confirmed by this body, in terms of being responsible for their job. But yes, I can speak. Some of us here have sat, not all of us, but some of us here have sat in operations of government departments, and that the burden and responsibility of leadership you carry on your shoulders. There is an expectation to perform. There is an expectation to meet timelines and deadlines. And more importantly, ensuring the financial operations of your department and agency and the reports that are needed related to that are provided. We need to have that. But you don't see a lot with the administration. You don't see them really doing much of anything when there's not performance. They just simply do nothing. And that really should not be the response to the people of Guam. That's essentially a slap in their face when we don't perform. And if we don't, there should be consequence. Very simple. It's sad we have to do it, but if these reports can't be put in place in time, then so be it. Maybe that will encourage those that need to perform to do their job. That's really what it comes down to. You want to be in charge, then take on the responsibility and do your job and do it properly and meet the requirements that you're supposed to meet for your respective position. That is what we expect. I believe that's very much what the people of Guam expect. So, Madam Speaker, I rise in support of this bill, and I hope our colleagues support it as well. Thank you.
Senator Brown. On the bill, is there anyone else who'd like to be recognized on the bill? Senator Barnett, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I too rise in support of the measure. The author had, in her opening remarks, said that it's been 13 times since 2000, right? That we didn't get the information in on time. Well, I would just advise my colleagues, get ready for the 14th. Yeah, we had the auditor in here around the time that these deadlines were being broken, and he was very frustrated. He was up in the committee of the whole, huffing and puffing, talking about having to meet with these directors weekly to hold their hand and walk them through the process. And I remember at the time, we were trying to direct excess revenues towards much needed places, but we kind of had to do that, unfortunately, with our eyes closed. And so, you know, while I'm a co-sponsor of the measure, thank you, but I just wonder, because the author had said we needed teeth, and I'm just not sure how biting a $250 fine is, especially when we consider these directors, you know, most of them make double what we're making in here. So that's my only thought. I don't know if she would yield to that. It's not really a question, but is $500 to you, does that seem more workable?
Would the sponsor yield?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. If you ask me, I would put $1,000. I mean, considering the salaries they make, and we're starting to see more and more, directors, like Senator Brown said, just sitting around and just collecting a paycheck, basically. But, we need to be conscious, and we need to make sure that, we don't overstep our power here. And I thought about $500. One of my other colleagues brought up $500 as well. But like the CRER report, it's $100. Like the Attorney General, actually, if they don't provide us information when requesting for info, that's a fine too, about $100. So I thought, if we're going to go this route, and considering those fines were implemented, 20 years ago, that we can increase it another 150 to make it doable. But that's 250 out of their own personal pocket. So the teeth comes when it comes out of their own personal pocket. So I think, I'm amenable to 500, but I think that I like to take things in baby steps, and hopefully this bill will pass with my other colleagues who are kind of, on the border here of whether to support this bill or not. I think it's very important, and I'm hoping that they too will support 250. They might be weary at 500. So, but thank you for that. Yeah.
Thank you, Senator Titagui, for the insight into your thought process relative to the establishment of these fines. I just worry, so take, for example, the situation we had the public auditor in here. I mean, we had agencies that were months late, and I just feel like they might be getting off a little easy if it's a one-time $250 fee. I don't have an amendment in my pocket to address this, but I'm just saying that we could end up in a scenario where you get a cabinet member who's fined $250, and we're talking about, some of these documents that are needed by the public auditor being turned in, 6 months late or even longer. But I think at the real heart of this issue is, once again, the legislature is stepping in to hold the administration accountable where it refuses to hold itself accountable. That's what this is really about, and I can almost smell the veto already, which is unfortunate. But, I would just say to the administration, if you're not going to hold your directors accountable, then we are going to. And one of the ways that we can is by, again, establishing these fines and encouraging, in a nice way, I guess, these directors to do the job that we confirm them to do in many cases. And so I would just implore the governor, lieutenant governor, maybe what they need to do is have a sit down with some of these cabinet members and impress upon them the importance of us being able to move forward with all the information that we need, so that we can craft a budget that, they'll sign, honestly. So thank you for the opportunity to speak on the bill. Sijos Masi, Madam Speaker.
Sijos Masi, Senator Barnett. On the bill, Senator Fisher, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm reviewing the bill. I see that it's $250 fine per missed deadline, and for every additional 30 days, it's another $250. So it's not just a one-time deal. It can keep rolling. Unless there's a version of this floating out there that I haven't read, I would put a question to the author. My friend Senator Titagui, is there a provision in this bill that says which entity or person will pay the $250?
Would the sponsor yield to that question?
Yes, Madam Speaker. On page 1 of the legislation, and as I failed to mention that I'd been working with the public auditor regarding this legislation. And it was important to him, as well as the autonomous agencies, also be included into this, not just the government line agencies, but autonomous agencies. So if you look on line 7, establish deadlines for submission by every department or agency head inclusive of autonomous entities or head of program within the government of Guam of all financial or program information under their control as are necessary to carry out the duties and functions of the Office of Public Accountability. So these are all government line agencies as well as autonomous agencies. I hope that answered
Senator
the
Fisher.
senator's.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. I think that my question, I must have muddled it a little bit. Assume the $250 fine comes into place. Who pays it, the agency or Director X?
Sponsor yield to that question.
The director themselves, the head of agency, which is the director, or the general manager, head of agency.
Senator Fisher, you have the floor.
Thank you. I fully appreciate that that's the intent. I'm just wondering whether or not the language could be tightened up a little bit to actually designate this to be a personal debt of the agency head rather than passing it off to the agency in general. Thank you.
If I may.
With the sponsor yield.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. I have no problem with that. You know, I truly believe in making sure that it's clear, as blunt and precise as possible, to make it clear that it will be the head, the GM, or the director of an agency. And if I could take a moment's recess, Madam Speaker, I'd like to...
No, Senator Fisher has the floor.
Oh,
Senator
okay.
Fisher.
No,
yes,
yes,
thank you,
yeah.
Senator. Senator Fisher, you still have the floor.
Yes, ma'am. I would yield to my friend Senator Taitigui.
No, you have.
All right, she's already responded to the inquiry.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Could I have a short recess?
Yes, 1 minute recess.
Thank you.
We're back from recess. Again, we're on Bill number 213-37. We left off with Senator Tom Fisher. You are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Being passed out right now is an amendment I am proposing to Bill 213-37. The purpose of the amendment is to make clear that the imposition of a fine for violation of the duty to produce is a personal fine to the director or head of the agency. So it cannot be transferred to the agency itself or put on the agency's books. The $250 and the subsequent, if they continue to violate, are fines which attach directly to the general manager, director, head of the agency in their personal capacity. So that is one change. And the second one is that the public auditor shall file a report of those general managers, directors, etc., who are violating this for the public's inspection. The purpose of the amendment is to somehow coerce the directors into doing actually what they are required to do through personal fine and public embarrassment. Thank you.
Si Diyos masi, on the amendment, Senator Taitagui on the amendment.
Si Diyos masi, Madam Speaker, and si Diyos masi, Senator Fisher, for this amendment. You know, I like to make things very clear. Don't use any big words, just go straight to the point. So it's very, very, very sure on who has to provide these fines, not the agency, but the individual themselves. So I greatly appreciate that amendment. And of course, to provide that extra teeth to the matter with the Attorney General for enforcement. So I stand in full support of this measure. I mean, I can't tell you how important it is. And I'm sure a director or agency realizes $250 out of the pocket, and every time they miss it every 30 days, it's another $250. So that is going to be something that they're going to think twice about, and that's what we need to do. We need to, one, stop violating our own, what's in the Organic Act of Guam that requires us within 120 days after the end of the fiscal year to provide this information to Congress, which we've been late 13 times. 13 times. So I thank you for this extra teeth, and I stand in full support of this amendment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Si Diyos masi, Senator Taitagui. On the amendment, Senator San Augustine.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to just ask the question of the author of the amendment. The question is, $250 comes out of the pocket of the general manager, director, but where does the money go? You collect the money, but where do you send it to?
Would the author of the amendment yield?
I would, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the gentleman for the question. I suppose that the money will go into the general fund for the use of all people of Guam.
I'd ask that if the sponsor would yield. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As I mentioned earlier in my opening, that the fine, Section 1 that's been included and Section 2 has been included, but it still remains that any additional fines, wait, let me get to the part where $250 posts shall be deposited into the Guam Memorial Hospital Operation Fund. That's the intent. Now, I do understand what the good senator from GIGO was asking, and if we can take a short minute recess to confer with legal to make sure that it still stays in the Guam Memorial Hospital, because it's not part of the amendment, and it almost stops, so I'm hoping it doesn't stop. And if anything, I tell you, if we can just ensure with legal that section stays intact in the legislation.
All right, thank you for yielding. Senator San Augustine, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The only reason why I'm asking that is because we're talking about taking something from somebody's pocket versus maybe if there was a mechanism. Because remember, every general manager and director gets paid weekly, every 2 weeks. And if they're going to find them, that it automatically be taken from their account and then put into if it's going to GMH, I'm good with that. I'd be very happy. But I just want to make sure it's going somewhere So hopefully it'll pile up and be able to take care of things. Other than that, I'm in support of it. Just curious about where it's going. Thank you.
Senator San Augustine. On the amendment, is there anyone else who'd like to speak on the amendment? On the amendment. All right, if there's no one else to speak on the amendment, is there any objection to taking this amendment as a whole? If not, all right, is there any objection to the amendment? Seeing no objection, this amendment passes. Senator Fisher, you still have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Nothing further.
Jesus Masi. On the bill as amended, is there anyone else who'd like to be recognized on the bill? If not, then sponsor may close on the bill. Senator Taitzigui.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank my colleagues who spoke on the legislation. And of course, to make this a stronger bill, that's the important part. So at this point, I would like to add co-sponsors, make a motion to add co-sponsors to the legislation. And that is Senator Tom Fisher and Senator Chris Duenas as co-sponsors.
On that motion to add co-sponsors, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries. Senator Taitzigui, closing.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. That being said, I'll just make it very short and send it down to make a motion to send it down to the voting file.
On the motion to send the bill as amended on the floor to the voting file, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries. All right. We now proceed with second reading. We're now on bill number 214-37 COR. Senator Kanata, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Bill 214-37 Core. I move to place Bill number 214-37 Core, sponsored by Senator Roy A.B. Kanata and co-sponsored by Senator Joe S. San Augustine, which is an act to amend to subsection 1115, Chapter 11, Title 3, Guam Code Annotated relative to tabulated and published write-in votes into the third reading file, and I'd like to speak on the bill.
Please proceed.
Thank you. The legislative proposal has been developed after comprehensive review of various election reforms requests put forth by the Guam Election Commission. As a part of their regular reporting, the Commission provides the legislature with an economic election comparative analysis report during the non-election years. The latest report, published in 2023, has proven to be a valuable source of information regarding Guam's electoral process. The amendment sought through Bill 214-37 would require the write-in votes to be tabulated and published if it has a significant impact on the election results. Bill 214-37 states that if the write-in voting oval or space is marked and name is written alongside it, the write-in votes will be counted for the corresponding office. If the total votes of the write-in vote could affect the results of the office, the name next to the marked write-in space will be tabulated and published. Otherwise, the only total number of marked write-in spaces will be counted. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I kindly ask for my colleagues for their support on this bill.
I'm sorry, could you repeat your motion, Senator? To place on third reading?
Oh, yes.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, already.
Okay, yes.
But I think some of the colleagues want to discuss it.
Jesus Masi, Senator. Is there any other senator who'd like to speak on that motion to place the bill on third reading? Senator Brown.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I know overall this seems like an innocuous bill that shouldn't be an issue, but I know it was brought up during the public hearing as to whether or not, even if it's a small number of write-ins that are written by voters during an election, is it something that we all should know who they recommended, even though it may or may not impact an election? And so I kind of think about that. Maybe in the bigger picture of the election itself, it doesn't matter. But at the other end, I think whether or not every individual vote counts, if it does count, should we have the Election Commission go ahead and publish the names of those individuals, even though I know occasionally you might have Donald Duck or Mickey Mouse or whatever the case may be. I still think that's probably something that we should address. So I myself haven't decided on how I want to vote for this bill. When that point was brought up in testimony during the public hearing, I thought, yeah, well, maybe we should know. Because others may argue, hey, you know, we want the Election Commission to make that extra effort to tabulate. And even though I know it's a cumbersome process, I'm probably the only one here who's done a hand count election. And it was close, 3 votes. After, you know, recounting about 38,000 ballots. So I can appreciate the lot of work and effort that does go into this, but I think, colleagues, it's something to think about. Should we require the Election Commission to continue as it has all these years, take that extra effort to publish the names of the write-in candidates that, you know, voters out there, maybe they're not the largest in numbers at that moment for that particular election, but they went ahead and put the names of whoever they are recommending for whatever respective office that was not listed on the ballot. I think that's something we should think about before we look at immediately voting on this bill. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to comment.
Seduce Masi, Senator Brown. On the bill, is there anyone else who'd like to speak on the bill? Senator Barnett, on the bill, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just want to first apologize to all my good friends at the Guam Election Commission and also thank them for watching this session. But I brought this up in the public hearing. Voted za uma cuenta, vote and your vote will be counted. And that's the problem I have with this, ma'am. I feel like if we have these ballots with these spots for the write-ins and people are writing in, you know, whether it's Angel Santos or Mickey Mouse or, you know, somebody that they believe in, I think that we have to respect the sanctity of that vote, even if it is for Mickey Mouse, unfortunately, and count it. And that's the only issue I have with it. I did want to ask the author if he could yield to a question and maybe explain to us when the write-in votes are tabulated, like in the process of the election.
Would the sponsor yield to the question?
Yes, I do, Madam Speaker. From my understanding, the ballots are all counted for in the evening or into the morning in the wee hours. All ballots are accounted for, and that's why they're trying to remove this from the process, because sometimes it takes a little bit more time for us to look at Mickey Mouse and make sure it's Mickey Mouse or Donald Duck, whoever they choose. Of course, I do hear the sentiments of the previous speaker that the importance of everyone's vote being counted, but at that time, every vote is going to be counted. But I'm just thinking that the intent of this legislation was to kind of streamline it, that if it's not really affecting the polls, then it's really removed from the process. So my understanding is every vote is counted, and even when it's recounted, their votes are still going to be counted. All the votes will be counted in a matter of when they publish the results for all write-ins as well.
Seduce Masi. Senator
That
Barnett,
satisfies him.
you have the floor.
So if this bill were to pass, how would that affect the counting of the write-in votes? Would it remain as the author indicated?
Are you asking the sponsor to yield or the sponsor yield?
No, if the legislation does pass the body, then they would remove because they're not really affecting the ballot count, if that makes sense. So if we would no longer have Mickey Mouse coming up in the senatorial race under all 30 representatives of each party. Does that make sense?
Thank you, Senator. Senator Barnett, you have the floor.
Thank you, Senator Cadet. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Yeah, you know, we keep saying Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, but I was actively involved in the write-in campaign for former Senator Defunto Angel Santos and also the late Senator Jose Piro Terlahi. And I know that the Election Commission is using this this argument that we don't have to count Goofy, Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck. But again, I just want to proceed with caution because people have written me in the past before I ever ran. And I think if people want to take the time and energy to write in individuals, then it deserves to be counted. It's a good way for us to see who people support, you know, outside of the Disney characters or whatever. I mean, if there's a legitimate support for an individual in our community who maybe isn't even running for office, then I think the people of Guam deserve to see that support published. And that's all I'm saying, ma'am, again, and I just go back to the slogan of the Guam Election Commission, which is vote and it will be counted. And I think that any deviation from that, I mean, I'm not going to call it a sacrilege against democracy, but again, if our intent is to count every vote that's cast, then that's exactly what we should do, ma'am. Sidus Masi, Madam Speaker.
Sidus Masi, Senator Barnett. Is there any other senator who would like to speak on the bill? On the bill, Senator Fisher, then Senator Siniclis.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. If I may ask my friend Senator Kanata a question. Do I understand the bill correctly, and I'm reading from line 9, if the total number of write-in votes counted for an office could change the results as to the person having the largest number of votes for that office, the names appearing next to the marked write-in voting oval or other defined space for that office shall be tabulated and published. Now, by using the word the words tabulated and published, do I understand that you do not mean that the name of the voter should be published?
Correct. If it's not a significant impact, similar like if you have 1 vote to 50 votes, right? If it's not enough to impact the threshold, basically the 50 plus 1, then it's going to be it won't be published. It won't be further recognized. They'll be counted, but it won't be published into the record, I guess.
Senator
Does that
Fisher,
satisfy you?
you have the floor.
I thank the gentleman for the answer. The question is more towards the privacy of the vote. When we said tabulated and published, for example, if I had a write-in for, I don't know, Senator Joe San Augustine or something for governor or whatever, and then I filled in the write-in oval, you do not mean to suggest that my name would be published, that I voted for Joe San Augustine?
You're correct.
Okay, so I just wanted to make that clear, ma'am, that no voter needs to worry about the disclosure of their preference on this. And then, ma'am, if I may ask my friend one more question. The question being this: do I understand this correctly? Hypothetically, I run for office and I lose by 20 votes. If there are 19 write-in votes, we will not count them, because if all 19 votes came to me, I'd still lose. But if there were 21 write-in votes, you would count them, because possibly I might pick up all 21 votes. Is that correct?
Would the sponsor yield to the question?
I yield. I believe so.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. I just wanted to make sure that the trigger for counting the votes only happens when it's possible that the vote could change. Right. Okay. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you for allowing me to clarify that. Thank you.
Senator Fisher. On the bill, Senator Siniclis, you are recognized.
Good morning again, Madam Speaker, and thank you for being recognized. I support the measure. Thank the good author and sponsor right here. And I wanted to see if I could get in on it and add me as a co-sponsor. And wouldn't it be cool if Mickey Mouse actually won the election? I've always waited to see how many votes he got. But yeah, I think it's a good thing to publicize the write-in votes. That way we get a good true feel of how our electorate feels about all of us. But thank you. I thank the author, and I like to be a co-sponsor. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. On the bill, is there anyone else who'd like to be recognized on the bill? If not, or Vice?
Speaker Therese Tulay, you're acknowledged on the main motion. Please proceed.
And thank you to the author of the bill. I know that there's a whole slew of bills we have on our agenda today that are going to talk about things that would make the Election Commission's job much easier and more efficient. On this bill, and I support, I think, all the bills, but this bill, I just have a concern. Some of it has been expressed by some other speakers, but I have seen as well write-in campaigns, particularly those in mayor's offices and other offices. We've seen some in gubernatorial races and senatorial races, mayor's races, any races. But when I have seen those that are serious about it, I think would very much want to know exactly how many votes they received. So if the bill was passed, it looks like we would change from publishing their names that were written in and the votes that they received to only publishing the number of total write-in votes, no names. So you wouldn't know how many you received versus some other person, versus Mickey Mouse, if that's, I don't really find it that funny because I have seen people take it very seriously. So I want to support those who are trying to run a serious write-in campaign. And even if they didn't get enough votes that would change the election, I still think they should see how many they received, just to see whether their efforts paid off, did not pay off, or sometimes it might be encouraging, even if they didn't win. So for that reason, and then I looked over the testimony during the hearing very carefully to see what is the actual time that it takes the Guam Election Commission to look over these ballots manually to confirm that the write-in name that the computer scanned and put into the computer is the write-in, is what they view to be the same write-in name. So they said that their current process is the computer scans all the write-ins, and if the oval is colored, that write-in is counted, and the name is also scanned by the computer. Our systems can do that. And then they said, but they do, right now by their rules, manually review again all the write-ins. So I haven't seen that that's actually the cause of the delay in voter results. I know we're all very anxious on election night to get results of the election, but I haven't seen that this particular process is causing that huge delay. And we can and especially in the case where they describe that the votes are not enough to change the results of the election overall, the write-in votes are not enough, then that's okay. They can publish results, unofficial results, and perhaps put the names in the official time or later when they are able to do that manually. So I just hope that the Election Commission is able to continue to do that as efficiently as possible and they haven't testified that this is really the cause of the delay in the vote count on the nights of the election. So I want to thank the sponsor for his efforts on this bill. Sizus Masi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Anyone else on the main motion? Anyone else? If not, Senator Roy, would you like to close?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Yes, I would just like to move this bill to the voting file.
On that motion, are there any objections? Seeing or hearing none, motion carries.
All right.
Madam Speaker,
Senator Kanata, you're recognized. Yes.
Madam Speaker, I make a motion to recess until 2.
All right. On that motion to recess, is there any objection? Seeing no objections, we'll recess until 2 p.m.